Hi guys, I'm Dr. Kareer from Let's Talk GP. So today I'd like to talk to you about pain. Pain is absolutely massive in general practice. Arguably, it's one of the most common topics that we see on a day-to-day basis. So where should we start this very big topic of pain? Well, could it be the classification? Could it be about the various types of pain? Could it be how do we manage pain? Or could it be your own interpretation of pain? Well, where better to start than one of the best-selling medicines in the world? If you haven't guessed it already, paracetamol. So paracetamol is a very interesting drug because it has a number of properties that we like to convey to people. So, for example, paracetamol, whilst it's very good at controlling common pain that we see, it's also known as an antipyretic, which is a medicine that's very good at controlling your temperature. So if you have a fever, for instance, in children, this is very common. We like to give Calpol or various forms of paracetamol that you can buy over the counter here in the United Kingdom. It's a very good medicine to help control temperature as well as pain. So now let's suppose you're well versed in paracetamol. Your doctor has told you, guys, use your paracetamol, and you're still in pain. What on earth do you do next? Well, you've probably heard this before. Your doctor will probably say to you, if there aren't any reasons why you can't have ibuprofen, the next medicine is generally ibuprofen. This is classed as a non-steroidal anti-inflammatory medication, which, as the name suggests, is an anti-inflammatory medication, but it also helps with pain control. So we start the process with paracetamol. And say, for example, hypothetically, you would start taking paracetamol at 9 o'clock in the morning. Then you would add on a medicine like ibuprofen or even naproxen to your regular regime. So that means it's important to take both of those medicines, provided you're safe to take them. So what does that even mean, taking your medications? How should you take your medication? Well, you should start by taking paracetamol. Generally, we say start the clock in the morning, and then a couple of hours after this, we would say take a medicine like ibuprofen or even naproxen, and this would be a couple of hours afterwards. And then, as the day progresses, you would take your paracetamol again, and 2 hours after that, we would advise you to take ibuprofen again. So around the clock, you have a regular stream of pain control. So why wouldn't we give you ibuprofen or a similar medication like naproxen? Well, if you've been told you've got a breathing problem like asthma, COPD, then generally we would advise you to avoid taking anything like ibuprofen or naproxen, purely because we're worried that it may affect your breathing. It could cause a potential spasm and interfere with your breathing. So remember, if you have breathing difficulties, generally we will tell you not to take medications like this. So let's assume you don't have any breathing problems, but you've had ibuprofen in the past and you have a bit of an upset stomach, or sometimes it causes you discomfort in your belly, for example. What can you do to help reduce that? Well, in some cases, if you're planning to take ibuprofen for longer periods of time, for example, longer than a couple of weeks, in some cases we can offer you a stomach protector. Now, a stomach protector is a medicine, for example, like lansoprazole or omeprazole, which helps to reduce the risk of side effects associated with medicines like ibuprofen or naproxen. So now, let's assume, for the sake of argument, you've got arm pain and you're using paracetamol and ibuprofen regularly. You've got quite a nice routine going. You're listening to your GP and he's told you to take your paracetamol, ibuprofen a couple of hours afterwards, and you're doing that around the clock. And you've been doing that now for a couple of weeks, and initially things were going quite well, and you felt that actually things were okay, and the pain in your arm was getting better, or leg, depending on where the pain was. So now, let's just assume, you're doing everything properly, and now suddenly you've developed a headache. Now what on earth are you going to do? Now, hopefully, the pain in your arm or leg, will have resolved. But unfortunately, you have this new problem with a headache. Well, there is a common term called the medication overuse headache. Now, as the name suggests, it's a headache that happens as a consequence of using too much medication. So, how do we know that you're using too much medication? Well, if you're using paracetamol and ibuprofen, then generally we say the cutoff is around 15 days if you're using one medication alone. If you're using two medications, then we would say if you're using medicines for more than 10 days of a month, then your risk of having a headache is slightly increased. Now, this doesn't mean that every person that's using these medicines is going to develop a headache. It's just something to bear in mind that if you develop a headache and you think you've been using the medicine for quite a while, then just have that in the back of your mind that perhaps this is secondary or as a consequence of using the medicine. So now you've got this doubt and you're thinking, goodness, I've now developed a headache and it could be related to the medicine I'm taking. So what do? Quite simply, you would stop the medicines that you're taking. So if you were using paracetamol and ibuprofen for, say, for example, 20 days in the month and you developed a headache, we would advise you to stop the medicine abruptly. That means stop it without tapering it off, and it would be safe to just completely come off of it. And the idea being that over the next couple of weeks, hopefully your headache will settle if it was related to having too much of that medication. So guys, to summarize this very brief video, pain is an absolutely massive topic in general practice. Remember, if you're using medications like paracetamol and ibuprofen, have a chat with your GP or have a look at the patient leaflet which comes in the box for common conditions why you shouldn't be having paracetamol or ibuprofen. Now, if you decide to take these medications, remember to take the medicines properly, meaning spacing it out across the day at regular intervals. Also, remember that if you tend to use these medications for a longer period of time, then you could develop a medication overuse headache, which can be resolved simply by stopping the medicines that you're taking. Finally, depending on the type of pain, there are different medications out there, but those will be discussed in other videos. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned for our next video and see you soon.